All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Social Media Lab Live. I am Scott Ayers, the content scientist here at the Social Media Lab, powered by Agorapulse, and excited to talk today about LinkedIn hashtags. I've done some studies on LinkedIn hashtags probably about 2.5 years ago, so it'll be interesting to see what my guest has to say on the research that she has done on LinkedIn. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. If you're just hopping on and watching, I do want to know, and I'll ask this a couple of times throughout the show, do you use LinkedIn? LinkedIn's kind of one of those places. Like, I always joke, and when I was doing, we haven't done them in a while because of COVID, but when I used to speak in person at events, we get to talking about LinkedIn. I'd always say LinkedIn is as cool as your uncle on the playground in a members only jacket in 1985. It's kind of one of those places that we all have, but we kind of forget about it at times. And then every time I go over to LinkedIn, I'm there for an hour or two because I love the content that's there. You miss, for the most part, you don't see all the junk and nonsense and drama that you do maybe on Facebook. I love LinkedIn's mobile app better than any mobile app that's out there. And so I'm excited to talk about LinkedIn. And the cool thing is I'm actually live on LinkedIn right now. I finally, after what seems like a decade, I think it's been 2 years, trying to get LinkedIn live. I finally got approved because my friends over at Restream, which is where I use Restream to do all my live shows, and Anya at Restream pulled some strings and got me approved finally after like the 15th time going to go live on LinkedIn. So I'm excited about that, interested to see and test more on my own personal profile as opposed to testing it on Agorapulse's page. My profile has more followers and connections, so I'm kind of interested to see what'll happen over there. But I've noticed, like, I see, George has already said hello, Scott, watching on LinkedIn. So I appreciate you, George. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen on LinkedIn with live as far as it comes. But so speaking of Restream, if you haven't checked out Restream yet, you need to go sign up. Restream is a cool little company. It's what I use for, like I said, for all my live shows. I don't use any extra software. I go completely live in their live studio, which is a cloud-based program, to do everything that I do. And I want to show you real quick, maybe I think it's like 45 seconds, a fun little ad that I saw them post, and I may have wink pulled it off of their ad library to play for you today. Yes, you haven't tried out Restream, go to restreamlive.com. You can sign up for free. It doesn't cost you a dime to get started with it. I do want to see who's saying hi in the chat before we get going. I see Chuck has said, I'm getting into using it, but haven't been consistent. I'm assuming you mean like LinkedIn, probably is what we were talking about earlier. And George said, hello, Scott, over on LinkedIn. Deb, our community manager, says, congrats and hi, guys. Molly Mahoney, good to see you watching on LinkedIn. As we talk about LinkedIn, Molly has some of the best Instagram stories and stuff out there, dancing and just having a good time wherever you see her at. She's always having a good time. So you definitely should go follow her. And I love all the content. Molly and I, the very last time I spoke on a stage was at Social Media Week Austin, and Molly was basically MC and also spoke. That was the last time I was able to speak on stage. So it was kind of cool to see her commenting here. Yeah, good to see you as well here on LinkedIn Live. Yeah. So hopefully at some point we'll get back on stages together. I think it's coming soon, especially here in Texas. I think we'll be back on stages pretty quick. around here. So we're going to talk about today, like as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the science of using hashtags on LinkedIn. And I'm going to turn this chat off because it make sure it takes up some of the screen. I may pull it back over later on, but it's kind of fun to see everybody chatting. You can chat with each other a little bit as we get started. But if you have any questions about LinkedIn or using hashtags on LinkedIn, feel free to ask those in the comments, and I'll pull them up on screen as we get on. And Molly did say something else real quick. I want to make sure you pull it up. We had a big kickoff party into the year of virtual. Yeah, that's so true, because that was like, it was right before Social Media Marketing World, so I guess that was March-ish or so of last year that we spoke together at that event. So let me pull the chat off of here. Let me pull that off, and then I'm going to bring on my guest. Her name is Christina Inge, rhymes with fringe. She told me right before we went live. Now, Christina, I am not real big on reading bios, but I did like to mention here in your bio that you're the founder of Thoughtlight, which is a Boston-based digital agency. And he says, and what her friends call her copious spare time, she teaches digital marketing to Harvard and Northeastern College. And I love all that. So welcome to Social Media Lab Live.
It's great to be here.
Now, if someone doesn't know who you are and wants to know a little bit more about you, can you kind of give us your elevator pitch of why I should listen to you when it comes to specifically hashtags on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for having me on as a guest. So again, I'm the founder of Thoughtlight. We are a digital marketing agency here in the Boston area. Been here for 5 years in our current form, founded 7 years ago this July. And we've been working with organizations large and small on their digital marketing, and everything from social media to email marketing to web design, web development, content, and SEO. Molly, I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I hope to help you accelerate your use of LinkedIn. Now, where I get my LinkedIn expertise from is I spent 6 years on the board of the American Marketing Association Boston chapter, which is the fourth largest chapter in America. Texas, you got us beat. You're a larger state. And so I believe the Dallas chapter, followed by Chicago, are the largest. And then we vie with New York for third or fourth, depending. And it's an eternal rivalry. So I was actually
everything's bigger than in Texas. Including my wig
chapter. We used to have conversations of do you think we can get to be a bigger chapter than Dallas? And I was like, no, seriously, let's just live with the success that we have. So because you can try, but you can't beat the Dallas chapter for sheer size. And Molly, shout out to Southern California AMA chapter. AMA people are just the best, just such a great community. So I was their inaugural social media chair, their inaugural vice president of social media, the first one ever. And I saw firsthand the power of LinkedIn and in social media community building from the ground up. Right. This started out in the 2000s. We ended up being selected as a case study for the academic case study writers conference, which it was held concurrently with the DMA, Direct Marketing Association conference, a few years back, because of our community building having literally become a case study because of what we were able to do with my team and I on LinkedIn and Twitter and our own online community. LinkedIn, though, was really core to that. So that's my background in social media for B2B.
Very cool. I still say all the time, LinkedIn, as far as the social media platforms that are still in existence as of today, I've been on LinkedIn longer than any of them. When I did B2B stuff, LinkedIn was where I made my bread and butter. That's where I found all my clients. That's where I always was making sales and finding connections. I used to move cars for a living as an auto shipping broker, and
Nice.
my biggest contracts came from my contacts on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And so it's
Absolutely.
still a place I think people forget about at times because it's not as, dare we say, sexy, as some of the other sites, or as hip as some
Yeah.
of the other sites. But LinkedIn is still driving so much traffic for people and so much business for people. And we definitely need to pay attention to it. Now, I'm curious, though, we're going to get into our conversation here about hashtags on LinkedIn. How did you get into talking about or investigating hashtags on LinkedIn?
It came from clients asking. It came from clients saying how many hashtags should we use? Should we be using hashtags? I've gotten competing, feedback. I don't know what the right thing is. I trust you. Let's experiment. And so that's what inspired it is, at Thoughtlight, my agency, in our 7 years of operation, first and foremost is doing right by our clients. And that doesn't mean, we're going to automatically do what you ask. We are a strategic partner. We're going to help you figure
Right.
out what's going to work for you. Clients came to us asking for that. So that's when we really started to take a deep dive into, what are we going to do? How are we going to? And so we started to experiment. And I have found that at least for the types of clients we serve and the types of things we promote, using about 3 to 8 hashtags, and sometimes we've gone all the way as far as 12. Haven't found that actually changes things a lot, but 3 is the bare minimum. 8 is the sweet spot, and that has helped us in an enormous number of ways in driving traffic for our clients and for our own programs as well. I do want to, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I do want to say that we also find that tags. We do a lot of event marketing.
Okay.
Both on ground back when we could and in the future when we can, and virtual, and even on Eventbrite, tags are critical. You want to max out your tags if you use any kind of event platform that has a social component to it, honestly.
Now, you kind of revealed some of your data before we got into some of it. So you said 3 didn't. Now I want to kind of like Quentin Tarantino it a little bit,
Okay.
and go back. So when you were looking at and experimenting with it, what did you have any sort? How did you test it? Like, I know for me, I use a scientific method. I try to remove all these anomalies and test multiple accounts, multiple industries, and get a good average. What was your initial testing this? Like, what did you do? What did that look like for us?
Same here. I'm a big believer in the scientific method. In
Yeah.
fact, my book that's coming out from something's ringing.
Yeah, I forgot to warn you that sometimes I'll play sound effects while you're talking. So.
Oh, okay. So my book that's coming out from Flat World, Fundamentals of Marketing Analytics. It's a textbook. It's 430 pages, but it's chock full. It's encyclopedic. It's based on using the scientific method applied to your marketing analytics, because honestly, you're not doing marketing analytics if you don't have a hypothesis.
Yes.
In this case, our hypothesis was more hashtags are better up to a point, but then you can also overdo it, but 0 hashtags don't work either. So that was the hypothesis, and we tested it out. I'll give you an example of some of the tests. One of the things that I do is I am a host for Pepper Lane, which is a Boston-based but nationwide and global and growing platform for mom entrepreneurs. That is, women entrepreneurs who are moms, but we're also open, men can join as well. It's for people who are making that plunge from corporate America into doing their own thing. So we do these events. I host them. They're a mastermind event. It's exclusive in the sense that only 10 people can join at a time, so that it is a true mastermind. I promoted it without hashtags 1 month because I wanted to see an event that got no hashtags. What happened? Guess what happened? Scott, take a guess what happened when I promoted it on LinkedIn with no hashtags.
I'm going to guess you had lower engagement and lower signups.
Canceled due to lack of meeting the bare minimum for attendance for one of these events.
Say it again.
Canceled due to lack of attendance.
That's not
I was like, okay, no problem. Next month, we are going to use that sweet spot of that I'll be honest, I've tested it out with other clients before, and I knew that it was going to be those 5 to 8 hashtags, sold out in 2 days.
Wow. That's interesting. Now, how long did you do that? Like how you said you ran the hashtags 5 to 8. Like how many posts was that? How many, was it ads? What did that look like?
It was organic posts. It was 2 organic posts over 7 days. Sold out.
So 2 organic posts, 7 days. That's, and you think it was, what kind of hashtags were they? Like what were the hashtags?
Well, that's the key thing about using hashtags for your marketing. You do not want to use just any hashtags. A lot of what I'm using on LinkedIn right now, and again, also on Eventbrite, which is the primary platform we use to market our client events, because we literally get 25% of our paid registrations off of Eventbrite. If you don't use Eventbrite, same thing, you're missing 25% of those attendance. Wow. So I took the learnings that I had, ironically, from Instagram, which you would think would be a completely different platform.
Right. Yeah.
Completely different platform. But here's what we learned from Instagram. The top engagement is, again, controlling for the type of image, the type of caption, same exact image, A/B testing it. The top engagement is for what I call sweet spot hashtags. And those are the ones that, relative to the platform's engagement, have a mid-level of posts. So on Instagram, that might be a top hashtag that everybody's using is going to have 3 million posts on it. A completely long tail post, completely long tail hashtag could have like 3,000, 8,000 people posting on it. You do not want either one of those.
Okay, why?
Because you're gonna get completely lost.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. You're gonna get completely lost on that 3 million post hashtag. Yeah. Everybody and their uncle is using it, including the uncle who's wearing the, members only jacket. And yes, you are going to get completely lost. You're not going to stand out, and it's also not going to reach your target audience, because at that point it is such a short tail hashtag that nobody's looking at it. That's why you want to stay away from that. But you also don't want to stay away from the one so long tail that's unpopular.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting in your results, because I'm going to share my screen real quick, because I was thinking about this before we got started. I was like, oh, you know what? I got something I can talk about here. If I can find it here, I'll just share my whole screen. Like, we did our testing, and you talk about hypothesis. I love hypothesis. My hypothesis, when I ran my study, we did a study 2.5 years ago testing hashtags. We'd done hashtag studies on Instagram, like you just mentioned. We'd done Facebook. We had done Twitter. So we ran a test, and we just said, all right, let's use at least one hashtag and see if we got more views and impressions. And what we found when we did that is, when we use at least one hashtag, we had almost 30% higher views and impressions on our post on LinkedIn. And this is 2 years or so ago, so it probably needs to be retested for us. And I did this on 2 accounts. We did posts, like, I think it was like everyday posts for 2 weeks without, 2 weeks with, on 2 different LinkedIn accounts. But it does mirror, and I'm glad it did, because I didn't know. Here's the funny thing. I didn't know Christina's data until she just told me. And so I was like, well, I hope our data matches up. So that does kind of mirror what you're saying, is, the more you start using those hashtags, they immediately start to show up, because people follow hashtags differently on LinkedIn than they do elsewhere. Now, so you saw on your data, you said 5 to 8 was your sweet spot.
Yes, yeah. And we've tested this extensively across different industries and different types of content,
Hmm.
different types of promotion, whether it's an event, a content marketing campaign like an infographic, a webinar, a white paper, if it's just engagement types, and I don't want to minimize engagement, but it's, a simple engagement post of, hey, what flavor of our ice cream are you looking most forward to this summer? That kind of thing. Always the 5 to 8 with events or
Right.
content. And I consider events to be content marketing as well. And like I said,
Yeah.
we've been doing online events since before online events were cool and necessary. I found that you want to tend more towards the higher end of that and
Right.
do the 8. If it's
Hmm.
if it's a simple engagement post, you really want to meet your true believers online. And your true believers are going to have a focused audience for you.
Hmm.
And that's going to be your longer tail hashtags and your more focused ones. And there you can go for 3. And I like to, I came up through SEO.
Right.
So I still like to use long tail and short tail for hashtags, though, because it's kind of the same principle as you would be using in your keywords in an SEO strategy. It's those broad terms that everybody's showing up on, or those narrow terms that only a really hardcore, tried and true audience is showing up on.
Now you said there for a second, so I'm gonna pick up on and kind of see if we can figure out anything here. You said, most of the stuff you've been doing is for events, so you're using those hashtags to get an event shown. But you also said something there about your engagement pieces. What did you mean by engagement pieces?
So just want to correct that it's not most of what our marketing is for events. I would say, though, it's about 25 to
Okay, that's
30%.
good. That's a good enough.
So yeah, that's a good number, though. So I would say what I mean by engagement pieces is not content marketing per se. So content marketing is going to be your webinar, your white paper, your blog post. Engagement is when you go on social media and you just post something to start a conversation natively on that platform. So
Okay.
you're maybe doing a poll, you're maybe doing a conversation starter post, but your goal there is really to get people to talk to you on the platform.
So is that primarily for you guys in your testing? Because I've done testing on text only updates on LinkedIn versus link posts or photos, and text only have always done exceptionally well
Mhm.
on LinkedIn. What are those? And this is not part of our conversation we were talking about, but what have you found works best for engagement on LinkedIn? Is it the text only? Is it LinkedIn? Is it links? Is it photos?
You're actually right that the text only ones do very, very well.
They always do. Yeah.
People like that right now on LinkedIn. I think the
Yeah.
rise of things like Clubhouse have shown that people want a simpler experience.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They don't want all the bells and whistles and the dog and pony show and no. They want simplicity.
Yeah.
They want to get to your content. They want you to get to the point.
Mm.
And the point is what you want to say. And I love Canva, by the way. I love Canva. I use
Yeah.
it. I
Big
teach it in
user too.
all my classes. However, I think that with Canva, everyone has gone a little Canva happy, and we're putting beautiful graphics with everything to the point where people are jaded with it.
Mm.
And we're turning back to content because they're jaded with it
Right.
and they just want to hear what you have to say.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think too where the thing with LinkedIn that's so different than um, say Facebook or Twitter could be a little closer, but on LinkedIn especially, you tend to be connected to people within your industry. So wherever that industry is, let's say you're a realtor in Boston, you're typically connected to other realtors or people at least cross, same business types or maybe mortgage lenders, title companies, those sort of things. And so when you post a text on the update of like, hey, what's your top 3 last minute open house ideas? Other realtors want to put their 2 cents in, really, really quickly. It's easy. They can kind of see what it is. They're not necessarily endorsing anything by clicking a link or commenting on a link. And boom, 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 they give their input and they're done. So it's about that whole sweat equity kind of thing. Like they're social equity. That's why the text only updates have always done so well. But adding a hashtag into it will change things some, because you get other people who may not follow you to see that. Now, what I want to dive into here, and I'm curious to see where you're at, because I've talked extensively about this with Judy Fox. If you know Judy at all, Judy and I have talked about hashtags on LinkedIn before. What is your strategy? You mentioned 5 to 8 is kind of the sweet spot, somewhere around there for the engagement levels that you've seen in success. Do you have I know you mentioned the really, really big ones you probably should stay away from, but what is your typical strategy on choosing those 5 to 8?
Couple of things. We do a lot of competitive analysis. We look at what our clients' competitors, or for us, what our competitors are using for hashtags. And then I would call it more landscape analysis. We also look at what are other organizations that are in our peer group doing. Are they doing a particular hashtag? Are they using a specific set of hashtags? And what kind of traction do they seem to be getting from it? Then we try them out on a low stakes thing. So for instance, maybe it's the first announcement of our new white paper or a client's new product. Obviously not for the product launch, but let's say it's just the first of the week, talking about a product or something like that. We'll see where that takes us. And then from there, we'll see, okay, that worked, that didn't work, and we'll tweak it from there. So picking hashtags, it's both an art and a science. We do a lot of landscape analysis, that is, a lot of competitive analysis, but also looking at non-competitors in the space. And then from there, we'll see what's getting the most traction. But then we will also test it out with ourselves. And never assume that the hashtag that works for your clients' competition is going to work for your client. Make sure that you're also doing your own due diligence.
Right. Now, do you recommend any sort of, like, let's say we're looking at lower level hashtags on LinkedIn, stuff that's not getting a lot. Do you have a, like, hey, use 2 or 3 that aren't getting a lot of searches but are very specific, and maybe grab some of those big ones, maybe have some branded ones? What do you typically like to see number wise as far as searches?
You actually hit the nail on the head, is that you want to use a good mix of them. I tend to like hashtags that have about 20,000 searches on them.
20,000. Okay.
Again, it really depends on the industry. I mean, one of our clients is in the material science analytical lab space, and they basically, if you're a company and you had a product recall or a failure, or you're just in the manufacturing process and the product's just not, the plastic's not gelling, or the glue's not sticking, or something like that, very specific, the bumper's falling off this vehicle, that's where they go in. And as you can imagine, that is not the world's most popular thing. The people who need it really, really need it, but it's going to be the QA managers or the scientists at particular companies who are going to need that. And in that case, honestly, if a hashtag's got 20 searches, you're lucky. So it's really industry specific. But if it's something that is a popular topic, it's a thing people buy or utilize in general, then you are definitely going to want to have like the 20,000, the 10,000. I don't like to go any lower than that unless it's, again, very specific industry where you just do not have that level of searches.
Now, why don't you like going any lower? Because no one's going to find it. Is that the idea?
No one's going to care.
No one's care. Okay, no one cares. Yeah, so no one's really following it necessarily. Now, the cool thing is on LinkedIn that I noticed because I follow various hashtags, and especially on desktop. I'm a big desktop user more than anything, but you can see how many people are following certain hashtags, and that's always a good indicator to go, oh, okay, well, this is a real popular. There's 10,000, 15,000 people following that hashtag. This means it has a chance of showing up at the top of the feed when someone hops over on LinkedIn, which is nice because most hashtags, like I think a Twitter or Instagram, you've got to do a couple of steps to find how many people are following it. And they're not following it as closely as they do. Now, what do you think about the suggested hashtags that LinkedIn does?
Half the time they're good. I honestly say if you don't have a lot of time,
Right.
if you don't have a lot of energy to invest in doing research, it's a quick post. You're going to be doing a lot of, commenting, or you're going to do a lot of promotions around this. And you don't necessarily want to invest a huge amount of energy.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world to use the suggested ones, but again, do your due diligence and ask yourself, is this on brand for me? Does this look to me, or have I researched this and found that it's too common a hashtag? Everybody's competing on it and it's a crowded market and I don't want to go there. Or is it something where it's just in that sweet spot? So don't just brainlessly click on, I'll do that, yeah. But it's certainly worthwhile. I mean, they're
Right.
often very spot on suggestions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you start entering your update. Like I think I did one yesterday, and it pulled in keywords from the link that I was sharing and what I put in there. And sometimes though it is like it's hashtag marketing, which must have I haven't looked, but millions and millions of people are using that hashtag. So you're going to get lost really, really quick. Now you might get lucky and get at the top of that, feed immediately, and 500,000 people might see you. I don't know, but it is interesting to see how they do. Nobody else, there's no other social site that I'm aware of that's doing this now, where they do the suggested hashtags for you. That's really unique to LinkedIn. But now there's no, I don't believe anyway, you might correct me on this, there's not a way when you see those suggested hashtags from LinkedIn, it doesn't show you any sort of search or following, right, on those. There's no way to see that unless you click on it and go to it, because you click on it, automatically adds it to the post.
It's not. So you just have to then do your own research first. And again, after a while, we work with clients longer term. So after a while, you start to know, and it just becomes like a memory saving device.
Now, when you research your hashtags, are you using a third-party tool to do that, or are you just using LinkedIn itself? What is your suggestion there for someone trying to find their 5 to 8 hashtags?
It's a mix. It is a mix. I like Later. I like Talkwalker. So I will use Talkwalker. I will use Hashtagify Me, although that's mostly Twitter and that's for Twitter and Instagram. That said, you can also just use LinkedIn itself.
Now, I've never heard of Talkwalker, and I'm looking it up on another screen. Hopefully, they're not a competitor of ours. But what is the deal with Talkwalker? Is it really just something looking for analytics on hashtags? Is that primarily what you use it for?
That's one of the things that I use it for, but it has a lot of other elements to it, but I won't say anymore because you're right. It may be a competitor of yours. So I'm
it could be a little bit there,
anymore.
but I do think there's lots of great ways you can search for the hashtags people are talking about. Hashtagify is one I've used in the past. Like you said, it seems they've changed over the years. And a little bit harder to use than they used to be. And it's primarily Instagram, I've noticed. But yeah, I mean, search for those hashtags. Just do it. For me, I like to look for, you said, nothing with less than 10. I don't mind a little bit of low hanging fruit and things where there's not a lot of people following it, because you may show at the top of that search for a while, which could be kind of nice. But yeah, a couple of small hashtags, a couple of medium size, and maybe a big one just to try it. But you got to know the big one's going to get lost so quick. And just search on LinkedIn for that. Now, I mean, do you do any branded? Do you recommend people doing branded hashtags? Like, let's say, hashtag social media lab. Is there any value in that in reality?
It can come across as a vanity thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it depends on how you're using it.
Okay.
One of the ways in which I like to use it is for a campaign. I wouldn't hashtag my brand. What
Why
I
not?
would hashtag is a campaign.
Okay.
I would hashtag a campaign. I would hashtag something like that's built on user generated content, for instance. That's where I would use a hashtag.
Now, why wouldn't you do a brand? What's your thought there? Because no one's going to see it.
No, it just, if you're a major brand, somebody might be searching on your name as a hashtag. They might, if you're a major brand. But if you're a small brand and you're posting a hashtag us all the time, it's, no one's searching for that. They're searching for you by your handle. They're searching for your page. They're
Yeah.
not looking for hashtag Thoughtlight. I know that. Nobody's looking for my company as a hashtag.
Is that one of your hashtags? Do you use that one?
We used to, but again, no one's searching for your company name as a hashtag.
That's funny because I'm looking at, and I saw Deb ask, so where do you see the following? See the hashtag follow numbers. I think you would have to go, and I'm over on LinkedIn on another screen. And a minute ago, she said she couldn't see my screen, so hopefully it actually shows up. I don't actually follow a lot of hashtags on LinkedIn. I follow Fox Rocks, my friend Judy. She's got 926 followers of her hashtag. But then, like social media and digital marketing, look how many people. Like, there's a lot of followers of those. So that's where you would see those. But you can search, like you said, Thoughtlight. Let's see if it shows up.
Not as a hashtag.
Oh, it won't. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't searched on it for a while yet.
No, I spelled it wrong. Let me go back.
THOUGHTLIGHT.
No, it didn't come up. But yeah, so you could, to answer Deb's question, you could do like hashtag. Okay, here's one: Facebook marketing, and I can see that hashtag has 6,322 followers. So that's followers. Now that's not the people searching for it. That's just people who actually follow that hashtag, and you can see your followed hashtags on the left sidebar on LinkedIn. You can see what those are, what you follow, and you can then click see all and add more or take some off or filter it. Now, how would I see how many people are searching for a hashtag?
So I like to use hashtagify me.
So you can't find that. You can't find that on LinkedIn.
Can I share my screen?
You should be able to. You should have an option down there.
Okay, so let me do that. Let me show you a couple of neat tricks, actually. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to open up this window. So let me show you a couple of things. So I won't be able to see you while I do that. Can everyone? So go into the search box, and what you might want to do is I'm gonna do the same search as you did, Facebook marketing, and then I'm gonna go into see all results, and then I'm gonna go into, first of all, this is really neat. You can just look at the posts, and again, in terms of how many people are searching at any given moment on a hashtag, I tend to focus elsewhere. I tend to look at who is posting on it and how much engagement they're getting. So it's, I don't honestly focus on that as much as I look at this. So I'm going to do this post search, and then I'm going to go into, I can look at the author's industry. So I can see, for instance, how many people in marketing and advertising are doing these posts. I can see what the posts are and what kind of engagement they're getting. Right. And you can see here, and this is chronological. So you're going to see, the level of current posting activity. You can also sort by other things as well. So you can just see, for instance, what's been happening past week, past month.
Now, the cool thing about LinkedIn, this is kind of interesting that I don't know you can do this much else, but you saw there, you can search by industry. You can search by day. You
Mhm.
can probably even, there's probably a way in there, because I've done it before, and drill down on location. So if you are
Mhm.
a local area and see if anybody else is using those hashtags or searching or for those hashtags, you can see if it's popular in different area in your certain area, which is really cool. That I don't think anybody else allows you to do on other platforms.
Yeah, and I X out of top match. So if you saw what I did there, I go into most recent because top match is LinkedIn's opinion of what the top match is.
Hmm.
I instead opt latest. So I go in and you can see you can toggle between top match and latest. I'm going to go for latest. And then you can see here, obviously something super recent that was done 9 minutes ago, not going to have a ton of response. So what I do is then you're going to scroll down and it's going to let you see stuff that's going back 22 minutes, an hour. You can see the level of engagement there. And you notice one of the interesting things I just saw with this filter is when I filter it by people whose industry is marketing and advertising, the engagement rates are actually lower than if I don't put that filter on,
Hmm.
which was really interesting here. The other thing you can look at is look at other industries or filter it by other industries. And you can look for events, jobs, groups, courses that are using that hashtag as well. Although typically I get the most traction researching the post level.
Right.
So this is where you want to go in. And what I urge you to do is, again, look at the volume of posts on a topic, but also look at individual posts that are recent.
Mm-hmm.
How much engagement are they getting? Are people responding to it, or are
Right.
they, letting it float by and not interested in it at all? You really want to look there.
Yeah, because what that'll do is if no one's engaging with it, then it's not helping your post. It's not hurting necessarily, but it's definitely not helping. So you want to find ones that are getting lots of engagement on it, which is a smart way to do it. And that's the sort of stuff that I think most people probably skip over is looking at those details of other people's posts to
Yeah.
see what's, because they just think, hashtag marketing, I'm gonna throw it in there. And I'm guilty of that too. Or hashtag SMM. We get that a lot in social media marketing. And nobody's going to that hashtag.
Yeah.
They might look at it, they'll see it in someone else's tweet or LinkedIn post or whatever, but no one's searching for it. So the intent's not there. And if no one's following, like if I go and add a hashtag and I see nobody's following that hashtag on LinkedIn, then I'm probably not going to get any engagement on it, and
Yeah.
might need to rethink that. And I do advise like anybody out there, follow some hashtags on LinkedIn and see what it does to your feed. Even on LinkedIn, it'll change it pretty quick. You'll start to see the top posts from that hashtag, and then you can go look. Like I'm looking over here on my screen again, but I can go look at, shout out to Judy Fox. Somebody should tag her again. But I can see all the posts under that hashtag, which is really cool to go see what other people are talking, especially you mentioned events. I can go see what people are talking about in that event. Like Molly Mahoney and I mentioned earlier, last time we spoke somewhere was at, in person anyway, for me, was at Social Media Week Austin. I could probably go find that hashtag and see what everybody was saying on LinkedIn and hop into that conversation. So following it's so easy on LinkedIn compared to everywhere else, in my opinion, because I love it. It puts it in that left sidebar for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Now, any other tips and best practices about LinkedIn hashtags? Well, I still got you.
absolutely. So my top 5 tips on LinkedIn hashtags: go for the ones that get you the audience that you really want. So, in other words, test them out, because some hashtags are going to get you a lot of engagement, but it's not going to convert. Or it's going to get you a lot of conversions, but it's not going to get you a lot of engagement. So, think about what's the ROI you want from your LinkedIn work. Well, are you trying to get just attention? Are you trying to get brand awareness, in other words, or are you trying to get specific actions like conversions? And then look for and measure what's getting you that engagement. So that's the first thing. Think about what your ROI is and specialize in using the hashtags that get you that ROI. Number two, try to experiment at least once a month, once every 6 weeks, if you don't have time, once a month, with new hashtags. The trends always change. Go on LinkedIn and see whether any new hashtags have gained a lot of followers, or whether, specific hashtags are getting different amounts of engagement than they were last month. So never get complacent with your hashtags. Third is never use a hashtag that you haven't researched before, because I'll give you an example. In one of my classes, typically SEM, we all know what that means, search engine marketing, but in the higher education marketing sphere, it also means strategic enrollment management. So if you were using SEM as a hashtag, you might attract the wrong audience. Sometimes hashtags actually have some bad meanings or negative meanings.
SMM is one of them. Like,
right. So be really careful before you post it and the wrong people come knocking on your door, either an unaligned audience or something really iffy, if it's totally outside your industry and not people you wanted to attract. So that's another critical post. So number four is, don't take my word for it. Do it yourself. Don't take Scott's word for it. Maybe you're in an industry where you need to use 12 hashtags. Maybe you're in an industry where you need to use no hashtags. So expertise can only get you so far. You are the expert in your industry or your client's industry, and go by that. And number five, have fun with it. I think every hashtag has to be an investment in getting that ROI, however you define ROI. I will sometimes use silly hashtags like hashtag, is this what I went to college for, or something like that. And I know that it's not going to get a lot of traffic, but it doesn't, I don't think the age of the ironic hashtag or the fun hashtag is entirely over. Yeah, it's a bit dated, but sometimes, it still gets that laugh, gets that smile.
Yeah, I think that's fun to do, because the thing that's interesting when you use hashtags in a sentence is it draws attention to it, especially if it bolds it, or like on LinkedIn, I think it turns blue and it's hyperlinked. So people kind of see it and it's kind of funny. Yeah, no one's searching for it, so it doesn't really help you. But it does maybe perhaps draw, eyeballs over to it for sure. Those five points were fantastic. Now, where can someone find you? We have Thoughtlight.net. If somebody was to run over to your website right now, and I'll post a link to it, what are they going to find on your website?
Well, come over to our website again, thoughtlight.net. You'll find out more about our services. We are recently certified and a MailChimp partner. Okay. So we again offer email, SEO, SEM, social media management, content marketing, and event production, event promotion as well. We're running a promotion right now called Bring Back the Feel of Real. And that's about our event production. We are offering people an opportunity to take their next event hybrid or still keep it online, but get out of that Zoom universe into things that feel
I was in a 2-hour
real.
Zoom last night. Oh, yeah.
It's agonizing. So stop subjecting your constituents to that. Yeah. Stop subjecting your customers to that. They're not going to buy from you. They're going to go away. We're bringing back the feel of real with some great platform partners and platforms that we have tested out and stand behind that allow people to move around a virtual space and network with each other in a much more natural way. And when you are ready to go back into physical space, but you still want to keep that online component so that you get the bigger attendance and the bigger reach, we're ready to help you produce your online hybrid events. So come on over, sign up for our newsletter, and we're going to be doing a giveaway of my new book that's coming out from Flat World called Fundamentals of Marketing Analytics. Oh, cool. Again, 430 plus pages of everything encyclopedic to do with marketing analytics. So if you're struggling with that, sign up for our newsletter, and 5 of our newsletter subscribers are going to get a free copy of the book when it comes out this summer, autographed by me. So, it's priceless.
Well, very cool. Well, Christina, I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your knowledge and the research you've done on LinkedIn hashtags. And I encourage and challenge everyone to go find Christina and connect with her over on LinkedIn and put a bunch of hashtags in your reply, in your comment, and see what they do and try it out. So I appreciate you.
Take care. It's been wonderful to be here, and great to connect with everybody out there.
All right. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Social Media Lab Live. Do make sure you run over to agorapulselab.com. You can see all the studies we've done. We just released a Twitter marketing survey. We surveyed about 800 people and got some really cool results. So agorapulselab.com. You can find that. And next week on the show, and I don't even know what we're going to talk about yet, but I guarantee we'll go more than an hour. I'm bringing on my friend Brian Fanzo. He'll be the guest next week on the show. And if you know anything about Brian, he doesn't sit still, and he's got like 16,000 cameras, and he's on Clubhouse like 18 hours a day. And I'm sure we'll have a heated discussion about Clubhouse, good, bad, and the ugly on it. So make sure you join us next week here on the Social Media Lab. We'll see you next time.